Sports Illustrated calls him a triple threat. Super Horse, says Newsweek. Super Horse, says Time Magazine. An alert and beautiful horse, says CBS. And most racing fans agree. That horse, named Secretariat, is the reason why one of the greatest crowds in horse racing history has turned out here at Belmont Park in New York to see if history is indeed in the air. I'm Jack Whitaker, and welcome to the 105th running of the Belmont Stakes.
Frank, you come in with them. Hold it. We'll bring in the last one now.
From Belmont Park in New York, CBS Television Sports presents the 105th running of the Belmont Stakes, third jewel of the Triple Crown of racing.
The Triple Crown is an odd phrase with its suggestion of a three-headed monarch, but what it actually refers to is the feat of a three-year-old racehorse in remaining in top condition for a period of 5 weeks, winning the Kentucky Derby on the first Saturday in May at 1 1/4 miles, going on to the Preakness in Baltimore at 1 3/16 miles, and the last jewel of this crown is today's race, the Belmont Stakes, at the championship distance of 1.5 miles. This ancient pine tree above me, which Belmont preserves with a great deal of care, is part of racing's care for tradition and age. And the tradition of the Triple Crown began with Sir Barton in 1919, has gone through 8 holders of the crown. There hasn't been one before today since Citation in 1948, and that dearth of winners is something that perhaps Jack Whitaker can tell you about now.
Thank you, Woody. The biggest reason for the paucity of Triple Crown winners in 25 years is the fact that the population of the thoroughbred has grown tremendously here in the United States. In Citation's year, about 8,000 foals were dropped every year. In this year of Secretariat, 26,000 foals were dropped. Another reason is that in the old days, the cast of characters were the same in the Derby, the Preakness, and in the Belmont. Nowadays, horses will lay off the Derby and the Preakness, be lightly raced and very fresh when it comes Belmont time. The Belmont Stakes itself is distinguished from the first 2 races of the Triple Crown by 2 features. The first is, because it is the last race, it puts a premium on the fitness of a horse. And second, it is the distance. The Belmont is run at the true Derby distance of 1.5 miles, the distance of the British Derby, where all this began back in the 18th century. Since Citation won the Triple Crown in 1948, 7 horses have come to the Belmont as Secretariat comes today. That is, they had won the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness and were taking dead aim at the Belmont. Canyonero II and Majestic Prince perhaps were not fit horses the day their Belmont was run. In 1958, there was Tim Tam coming to the Belmont with solid credentials. But as they turned for home, Tim Tam, the horse on the left, began to make his move on the leader, Cavan, and then he broke his leg. Watch now as he swerves in and out. Cavan went on to win by 6 lengths, but the gritty Tim Tam held on, and in one of the most courageous efforts in sports, got 2nd place, running the last part of the race on 3 legs. For other horses, the last 1/4 mile did them in. In 1966, the well-bred Kauai King led the race after 1.25 miles. But watch now as they head for home down that long last 1/4 mile. Amberoid takes the lead from him. Then Buffalo pulls past him. And eventually, the son of Native Dancer finished 4th. Yes, the Belmont is different. It is a true test of champions. And if you're looking for a place where it may be won or lost today, you might try that last 1/4 mile. There may be some people who do not know what or who Secretariat is at this time. People who have been marooned on Pacific Islands or lost in Amazonian jungles. But for those of you who may have just gotten to know him in the last week or 10 days, here is a brief biographical sketch. First of all, you must know that he is quite the handsomest of horses to come along in decades. Secondly, he was voted Horse of the Year as a 2-year-old. an unprecedented event, unheard of, since that award always went to older horses. If that wasn't enough to distinguish him from his peers, Secretariat was syndicated for $6,080,000 before he raced as a 3-year-old. Not only was that unheard of before, it had scarcely been dreamt. Apparently untouched by the heavy weight of gold draped around his handsome withers, Secretariat began his 3-year career winning 2 races in memorable fashion, busting through horses like a fullback in the Bayshore, and then taking the Gotham by tying the track record at every post. But then came a long gray afternoon at Aqueduct 2 weeks before the Kentucky Derby, when Secretariat indicated that maybe he was not quite one with the gods, when he finished a lackluster 3rd in the Wood Memorial, the first smudge on his immaculate linen. But that linen went clean again at the Kentucky Derby. Here he comes now as they round the far turn. Secretariat on the outside and coming up to the leader, Sham. Secretariat in the blue and white checks. Sham on the inside. And there they are, head to head as they come down the stretch. Now Secretariat pulls away and leaves Sham behind as Pink Eye still driving Sham, and Turcotte now knowing he has the race won. The fastest Derby ever run and the fastest final quarter every run as we see that big stride of Secretariat. 2 weeks later at the Preakness, he moved differently. Dead last as they came down by the clubhouse turn. Turcotte steered him to the outside, and at this point, the big horse decided he wanted to move, and move he did as Turcotte led him. Watch him pass the horses. Moving quickly now. That is Écolitage on the lead, number 6, and at this point, Secretariat went ahead, took the lead, which he never relinquished. Coming down the stretch, Sham came at him, but again, Sham did not have enough to catch Secretariat. Again, Pink Eye driving Sham, and Ronnie Turcotte almost in a rocking chair as the big stride of Secretariat took him home in the second best Preakness time ever. In the 2 weeks since the Preakness, Secretariat has become a personality outside the thoroughbred business. And he has made the blue and white block of his owner's Meadow stable as easily recognizable as a CBS eye. A small stable, it has delivered tremendous quality out of very little quantity, and has perhaps given horse racing the needed boost. 4 other horses are here to see that Secretariat does not take the Triple Crown today. To tell you about them and to run down the field, here is Chick Anderson.
Thank you, Jack, and here is our small but very good field for today's Belmont. First of all, you'll have to notice that there was a late scratch in this race. Originally an entry, Nightly Dawn was taken out of the race this morning. His owner and his trainer decided not to run him, primarily because the track was not muddy, something they had hoped for, and secondly, because they intend to race in the Ohio Derby next Saturday. The other half of that entry is 1A Sham, and you should know Sham from his valiant efforts in the Preakness and the Kentucky Derby. And once again, the rider will be Lafitte Pincay Jr., who is here from California. One of the leading riders in the country has them out again today. 2, well, that's Secretariat, and the story there is, of course, Meadow Stud, Lucian Lauren, and Ron Turcotte. Number 3 is Private Smiles. You haven't seen him in the Preakness or in the Kentucky Derby. Private Smiles was a bit late developing, but seems to be coming along very strongly now. He's the son of Herberger, a true distance horse. Will be ridden today by Dan Gargan, and Private Smiles is very likely the horse will trail the field and make an effort to catch everybody in the final half mile. We'll talk to Danny Gargan in a moment and find out if that's the case. Number 4 is My Gallant. My Gallant raced in the Kentucky Derby, not particularly well, had a bit of trouble in the larger field, however. My Gallant will be ridden by Angel Cordero Jr., and My Gallant is likely to show speed. He won here in New York just a week ago, showing speed against older horses, in fact being in front all of the way. The final horse in the field is number 5, Twice a Prince, who has Braulio Baeza. Twice a Prince had some problems in the Kentucky Derby, but they were before the race. So we'll probably take a look at Twice a Prince in a moment and maybe talk to Braulio Baeza about the problems that you have in the starting gate occasionally.